Those panels might have looked like they fell off easy, but this part took us hours. Pulling bolts, wrestling beams, getting everything out clean, nothing quick about it. But before I show you what it really took to strip all this down, here's what you'll see in this video. Tying the final rebar mesh, raising the formwork to full height, pouring the last section of the walls, and reviewing how it all turned out. Then we'll lay stones at the entrance, leveling out the basement floor, getting everything prepped for waterproofing, because once it's sealed, we're burying this build for good. This is part 2 of our underground basement build. Let's get back to where we left off. Now comes the moment we always second guess, pulling off the marine plywood from the inside. At this point, you're hoping every corner got vibrated properly, because once the forms are off, there's no hiding bad compaction. We went slow panel by panel, watching for any cracks, gaps, or honeycombing. It's the kind of reveal that either feels solid or ruins your day. With the first form fully off, we moved on to finishing the rebar mesh for the second half of the wall. The vertical bars were already in place. We installed those back when we did the first stage of steel. Now it was just the horizontals. We tied them in row by row and tag welded every joint to keep the mesh locked in solid. Clean, simple, and strong. Only one bar left, the top horizontal. But this one's not going in level. To get that slope right, we pulled a string line from the center of the wall to the far end, hooking it onto the marks we made earlier. With the string tight, I used a correction pen to mark the exact angle on every vertical bar. Then we tag welded the top rebar in place, hitting each mark, locking that upper line in perfectly. We're doing this because the concrete slab that's coming next will slope in 3 directions. From the center to both ends, we've got a 20 centimeter drop, and from the entrance all the way to the back wall, a full half-meter difference. It might look like a roof, but we're sloping this slab to help it resist soil pressure from all sides, so the wall rebar has to follow that same angle to keep everything locked together. Now it's time to weld in the diagonals. These bars keep the whole mesh from shifting. Once we plumb everything straight, these ties lock it in place. After tag welding, that whole wall stays plumb and solid, ready for the formwork. After everything was tag welded, we still went in and tied every bar with steel wire. Welding holds it in place fast, but by itself it's not enough. A weld can crack under pressure, vibration, or even temperature shifts. Those wire ties create redundancy. They make sure the mesh stays locked during the pour, no matter what's pushing on it. With the mesh fully finished and tied off, it's time to start setting up the second half of the formwork, right up to full height. Now we're lifting the second set of boards, and these ones are heavy. Getting them up over that first 1.2 meter wall isn't easy, especially when you're pushing close to 2.7 meters in some spots. We're not worrying about final wall height yet, just making sure every board clears high enough so we don't have to stack anything later. At the bottom, we're overlapping the boards onto the old concrete by at least 10 centimeters. That helps lock things tight and stops fresh concrete from pushing through the joint during the pour. Now we are throwing in 10 by 5 braces, 4 on each board to stop it from blowing out during the pour. These hold everything tight once the pressure hits. Drilling straight through the new braces and boards for the threaded rods. We couldn't reuse the old holes. The layout shifted just enough to throw them off. So every rod's getting a fresh hole matched to this setup to lock the formwork solid from both sides and keep those panels tight once the pressure's on. Now we're sliding in the threaded rods, right through the 5 by 5 braces that act like full height spacers. Some of these holes are tight, so we're hammering the rods through where needed. Others, they glide in like butter. Either way, they're locking the whole structure together from front to back. Formwork's all done. Everything locked in tight, top to bottom. Now just one last step before the pour, marking where the top of the concrete will go. It's not a simple level line. We're building these walls in 3 different angles, so every mark has to line up just right. To mark those angled concrete lines, we use string lines and nails. 1 nail at each key corner, right where the biggest height differences hit, plus 1 at the front and back center. Then we pulled the string tight across the form to map out the slope. After that, we hammered in guide nails every 30 centimeters right along the string. The tighter the spacing, the more accurate your concrete angle will be. And we always use nails instead of pencil lines. Way easier to find during the pour, and it saves the boards from getting cut. Prep's done. Nails are in, levels are right. Now it's time for the fun part, and the scariest one. Let's pour this concrete. Same concrete pump truck as last time. And once again, the arm's just long enough to reach across the whole form. We're starting with a base layer, moving slowly around the perimeter. The goal here isn't speed, it's control. That first layer needs to sit evenly, hugging every corner, every edge, so the formwork stays stable and doesn't bulge under pressure. It's all about setting the right foundation before we bring the rest up to height. Now we're going in for the final round, topping everything off right to the nail line. Actually, just a touch above it. That little overflow makes it easier to level later. No need to scrape off high spots or cut into dry concrete. Just drag it flat when the time comes. Walls are finished, and we're leaving these rebars sticking out. Later we'll bend them into the slab mesh to lock everything together. This concrete's staying in place for a few days now to cure properly. Concrete's still curing, but we're not done. This entrance, full stone, no shortcuts, just hands, weight, and patience. But first, we've got to clean up the mess from that first pour. The bottom edge of the foundation is still covered in concrete leftovers, and that's got to go if we want the stones to stick right. Then we hit it with the jet washer, blasting off all the dust and grime the wire brush couldn't reach. Clean surface means solid grip for every stone we lay. Now we throw down a thick bed of mortar. We're starting with big, uneven stones, so this gives us room to press them in and squeeze everything level. No perfect cuts here, just pressure, grip, and adjustment. Started with the biggest stones we could find. No lifting, just rolled them straight onto the thick mortar bed. They're heavy enough to settle right in, no wobble, no shifting, just locked in place. The second one needed a proper lift. No way around it. Had to match the shape of the first stone so we'd get a clean, even joint. These things don't exactly cooperate. Every edge is rough, every side's different. But once you line it up right and press it into that bed, solid. Heavy as hell, but strong hands get it done. Before setting anything, we jet washed every single stone. These came straight from the field, full of dirt, clay, and years of dust. Mortar won't grip onto that, so we blasted them clean, stripped off the loose bits, and brought the stone back to a proper bonding surface. Then, while they're still damp, we paint the back and bottom with a bit of wet cement. Just a thin coat, but it helps that stone bite into the mortar bed. Fills in the voids and gives us a stronger hold. We're basically turning rough, dusty field stones into something ready to build with. That wet cement layer acts like a grip. It pulls the stone into the mortar and makes sure it doesn't shift or separate over time. Especially important when you're laying heavy pieces like these. Then we laid the second side. Just 2 stones on this bottom row. The rest is going to be filled with concrete, since the sides will be buried in sand anyway. No point wasting good stone where it won't be seen. And we still had to make sure those stones sat level. Not easy, since they're all uneven shapes. Takes a good eye, lining them up so they stay plumb and look solid. Now it's time to jump back to the main structure and finally strip down the last bit of formwork. We can't lay any more stone at the entrance with this formwork in the way, so it's got to come off first. Let's tear it down and see how that final wall pour turned out. These 10x5s did their job, but now we're tossing them out of the way. Final moment now. Time to pull off the OSB and see how this wall really turned out. They're still in great shape, so we'll store them for one more round of formwork. No waste here. Not bad at all. No honeycombing, nice clean edges, everything vibrated just right. And check this. The arch above the door turned out great too. Now for the fun part, pulling off the marine board inside the basement. No more guessing. Let's see how that concrete really turned out. These boards came off without a fight. That's the power of proper prep. We oiled up every surface before the pour so nothing bonded too tight. No tearing, no splinters, no hammering needed. Just a gentle push and the board's off. And look at that surface. Smooth, clean, not a single honeycomb in sight. Every corner came out crisp. That marine board did its job perfectly. With the formwork out of the way, it's back to the entrance. Time to keep building up the stonework, one layer at a time. Stone by stone, the wall starts to grow. Every piece gets checked, adjusted, tapped into place. These joints aren't just about looks. They lock the whole structure together. It's not fast work, but that's the point. The more time we spend now, the better this entrance will hold up for years to come. Now it's time to backfill behind these stones with concrete, locking the whole first row in place before we stack the next layer. This fill doesn't just add weight, it evens out the backs of the stones, so the next mortar bed spreads better and holds tight. And here's how the entrance is shaping up. Didn't show the full process here, but trust me, that part deserves its own episode. Full stone laying breakdown coming soon. So don't forget to subscribe, you won't want to miss it. Now let's jump into leveling the basement floor. First job, bringing in sharp sand, and for that, the tracked dumper is doing what it does best. Gets through tight spots, climbs over anything. This little machine's been a lifesaver on every part of the build. One thing though, it can't tip the full load. So we've got to shovel out half the sand first, then the hydraulics can finish the job. Yeah, we'll fix that later. But first, let's finish this basement. We're putting down about a 10 centimeter layer of sharp sand here. That's not just for leveling. Sharp sand gives us a stable, compactable base for whatever comes next. It drains better, won't shift under pressure, and helps avoid cracks later on. Told you this dumper fits through tight gaps. And here's the proof. It's a squeeze, but it makes it through. Just how we like it. Last load for now. Time to start spreading. We're not overloading the space either. We'll see exactly how much more we need once this batch is leveled. No point hauling extra in just to take it back out. To spread these piles, we're just using a rake. No need to be precise yet. Just moving the sand around, filling every corner so the whole floor is covered before we go in for final leveling. All the piles are spread. Now it's time to get precise. We're switching from the rake to a proper leveling screed bar and working section by section. This gives us full control over the surface, shaving off the high spots, filling in the low ones, and slowly bringing everything to a clean, level finish. Once we leveled everything out, we still needed a few more loads to finish the job. So we brought in the last bit of sharp sand, dumped it straight into the low spots, and spread it all out smooth. Every corner had to line up. We checked by eye, checked with the level, nothing left to guesswork. It took a bit of back and forth, but by the end, that floor was sitting exactly where we needed it, flat, compact, and ready for whatever comes next. With the sand perfectly leveled, we're laying down some old OSB we had lying around. These boards will stop the slab formwork legs from sinking into the sand when we start building the top slab. It's a simple trick, spreads out the weight, keeps everything stable, and saves us headaches later. Part 3 of this basement build is coming next. We'll show the full slab formwork setup step by step. So stick around and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see how it all comes together. But before we jump into the formwork, we're going to waterproof the outside walls, before this whole structure gets buried for good. First job, filling all the leftover holes from the formwork tubes. We're packing them tight with a stiff concrete mix and a bit of sand for better bond, pushing it in by hand so it fills the full depth and locks in solid. Next up, drying out the bottom bit of the wall. This part didn't get any sun, so it's still damp from the rain a few days back. We hit it with the flamethrower to make sure it's dry before waterproofing. Time to mix up the bituminous waterproofing. We're using a drill with a paddle mixer on it. Makes it fast and smooth. You've got to stir it well before painting, or the thick stuff stays at the bottom and won't seal properly. Once it's mixed up right, we'll brush it on to lock out the moisture before this whole thing gets buried. We're coating the walls with bituminous waterproofing, and the goal is full coverage. No bare spots, no missed corners. 2 full layers are going on, with extra attention around the base where moisture builds up the most. Every stroke counts here. A proper seal means we don't have to worry once this basement gets buried. We're working it in deep, making sure the coating bonds well with the concrete surface. Once every coat was on, we left it to dry for a few days. No rushing this part. You want that bitumen fully cured before it ever touches soil again. This waterproofing is the last thing these walls will see because now we're burying it all.